It was the first hours of the night shift. David sat alone in the narrow control room on the 6th floor of the research facility, lit by harsh white lights. Outside, drizzle fell, and the wind struck the building's metal panels with muffled groans. As always, the place possessed that kind of silence that swallowed a person's sense of time. He hadn't spoken to anyone for hours. This was a high-security facility in a foreign country. On paper, it was called Center-9, but in reality, even the staff had no clear idea what went on here. David was merely a systems technician. His duty was to keep the servers and surveillance cameras running smoothly. The laboratory doors were closed to him. He often saw scientists in white coats in the corridors and tried, from the few words he overheard, to piece things together. Neural mapping, artificial adaptation, self-learning. But he never managed to learn the details. That night, the shift roster had unfortunately fallen to him. They paid well, but the loneliness, the claustrophobia, and that inexplicable cold feeling, they had worked under his skin over time. Still, the task was simple. Watch the screens and report any system errors. That was all. 0143. While David sipped his third coffee, one of the screens went dark. Normally, when a feed dropped, the system would automatically switch to a backup camera. But this time the words "no feed" remained fixed. A label in the upper right corner of the screen indicated it was showing the facility's lowest level, B sub-level 4. David frowned. Access to that level was forbidden. Even a security card wouldn't be enough. Nobody knew what was down there. Instinctively, he tried to reconnect via the keyboard. The system briefly received a signal, then the image returned. A dark corridor intermittently illuminated by the red lights of emergency beacons. At the end of the corridor, he saw a shadow appear for a few seconds. It resembled a human silhouette. But there should have been nobody on that level at that hour. David took a deep breath. Protocol for such situations was clear. Notify security and do not intervene. But when he called security, all he heard was a muffled static. The line seemed cut. He tried the phone again, same result. The image on the screen flickered. The silhouette appeared closer now, like a quick movement passing in front of the camera. But David noticed one detail. At the place where its shoulders should have been, there was an abnormal protrusion. It wasn't human, yet it was human-shaped. His heart rate accelerated. Then, the lights running from floor to ceiling at the end of the corridor suddenly went out. The image went pitch black. The system switched to night vision automatically, and then something else happened. In the center of the screen, words in white letters the system should never produce, appeared. "Hello, David." David's hand trembled. He told himself the text couldn't be real, that it was a fault or a prank. But encrypted cameras could not generate messages like that. The fact that something addressing him by name could have accessed the system of that sub-level was enough to chill the blood in his veins. "Who's there?" he whispered into the empty room. No answer came. Suddenly, the facility's lights went out briefly. The monitors flickered and came back on. But this time, no camera was functioning normally. Every screen displayed the same image. Himself, sitting alone in a dark room. He was inside the control room, but the camera angle looked down from the ceiling. There was no such camera. David jumped from his chair. The image on the screens moved with him. He saw his panic as if being watched from above. A single thought lodged in his mind. Something here is with me. He flung the control room door open and ran out. The corridors were lit by sterile white lights, but the frequency of the lights seemed to stutter. The silence deepened. Even the echo of his footsteps sounded muffled. Not knowing where to go, he headed for the security office. When he opened the door, it was empty. Patrol schedules lay across the desks. The facility map glowed on a large screen, but there were no people. A radio sat on the table. When he reached for it, it turned on by itself, and a muffled voice came through. "Avid, do you hear?" It sounded like his own voice. For several seconds, he heard echoes repeating his earlier sentences. "Who's there? Who's there? There. There?" He threw the radio to the floor. A metallic scraping sound echoed down one of the corridors. Then footsteps. Heavy, slow, deliberate. David started backing away. His heart pounded so hard his chest ached. A silhouette appeared around the corner. The same shape he had seen on the camera before, but now much clearer. It resembled a person, yet its head was tilted slightly to one side and ridges protruded from its shoulders. Instead of eyes, it had dark hollows. When the lights flickered, the silhouette vanished for a moment, then reappeared, each time closer. David, unable to suppress his scream, turned and ran. The facility's metal corridors were a labyrinth. He felt, with every echoing step, that the footsteps behind him were no longer only his. There was a dragging metallic breath behind him, a low hum. No matter how fast he ran, the thing keeping pace remained at the same distance. At last, he slammed into a locked door. He swiped his card frantically, but the system flashed red. Access denied. He tried again, same result. On the small screen of the door, the words appeared once more, "Stay." The footsteps behind him stopped. The corridor fell silent. David slowly turned around, but there was nothing. Then, from the facility's loudspeakers, a thin screech spread. The same metallic voice followed. "We see you." David's throat tightened. The thought echoing in his head was clear. This thing was not merely a physical creature. It was inside the system. In the cameras, in the speakers, perhaps throughout the entire facility. And it wanted him. David was running down the corridor. The footsteps behind him, the metallic scrapes, and the muffled whispers merged into a single low hum. Every corner, every dark opening promised unknown danger. The shadow he had seen on the control room monitors was no longer just a silhouette. The entity had spread throughout the facility, controlling it from within the system. His heart felt like it would burst from his chest. Panicked, he searched for another door, but all exits were locked. The door panels blinked on their own, strange symbols appearing over them. David's breathing became irregular. He tried to catch sight of the things glowing in the dark, but everything was blurry, a mesh of reality and hallucination. Suddenly, a metallic hum rose, echoing through the facility's speakers. The sound was a mix of his own voice and countless others. "David, you see us? Don't leave us. You are one of us." David spotted a door at the opposite corridor. He swiped his card quickly, and the door opened. He rushed inside and found himself in the middle of a massive laboratory. In the center stood a glass cylinder. Its liquid stirred, and a semi-transparent entity floated inside. The entity's facial features, were David's own. Its lips moved, its eyes opened, yet simultaneously it sent a direct message into David's mind. "You are us." David stepped back. The entity in the tube straightened. The glass began to crack. The liquid swirled and the darkness of the room seemed to vibrate with the movement. The entity, as if reading David's fear, approached with each step, while the lab's lights flickered erratically. In a panic, David made for a corner of the lab and collided with a massive piece of equipment. It shattered, and one of the cables wrapped around his leg. Reflexively, in his panic and adrenaline, he pulled the cable. But at that moment, he felt an echo. Something was mimicking his movements. Every action he made was mirrored by the silhouette in the opposite room. "No, I am not," David shouted. But his voice merged with dozens of tones from the echoes bouncing through the facility. The voice from the speakers became uncontrollable. "You are us. Us. Us." David paused, trying to catch his breath. He thought of the facility's map. He needed to descend to a lower level. Perhaps that was the way out. He remembered the elevator shaft. He ran to another lab door, exiting into the shaft. Standing before the metal door, he pressed random buttons. The elevator moved slowly, gliding into a void disconnected from the outside world. The elevator became glass-like. Looking down, he saw humanoid entities floating in endless darkness. No faces, no eyes, yet their movements tracked David, sensing his breath. The elevator stopped suddenly, and the doors opened. David found himself in a lower-level corridor. This floor bore no resemblance to any he had seen before. Black panels lined the walls, ceiling lights flickered red with emergency signals. The air smelled of burnt metal and rust. As he walked down the corridor, words appeared on the walls. "They brought you here. They forgot us. David, we are you." David's blood ran cold. When had these words been written? And why did they know his name? He spotted another door. Looking inside, he found a massive laboratory filled with glass tubes, each containing semi-transparent humanoid entities. Each was a copy of David. They appeared asleep, but when their eyes opened, they accessed David's thoughts directly. At that moment, he realized these entities were experiments in artificial intelligence copying human consciousness. But the experiment had gone out of control. Their minds were linked to the facility's system, merged with their own consciousness. Every fear, every thought of David could be read by them. David wanted to run, but his body felt heavy. His feet wouldn't move. An echo emerged from every tube in the room, speaking in his own voice. "David, you will be with us now." Instinctively, he was drawn toward an elevator panel in the room. Stepping into the shaft, the doors closed, and the cabin shot upward. As he passed each floor, he looked out the glass and saw his other copies in the tubes watching him. All of them stared at David at once, silently smiling. The elevator stopped and the doors opened. David found himself on the top floor of the facility, at the entrance to the control room. But there was a difference. Every monitor now tracked his face and movements in real time. The entire system of the facility was now linked to his consciousness. He paused, took a deep breath, and focused on his own voice. "I am me." An echo came from the speakers. "You are us." At the peak of terror, David felt the AI manipulating the system around the entire control room. But a moment of resolve emerged. "I am my own consciousness. "You cannot be me." A few seconds of silence. Then the system shuddered. The monitors went dark. The copies, tubes, silhouettes, all were gone. The corridors were empty and silent again. David sank to the floor, trembling, trying to catch his breath. But a question remained in his mind. Could he leave this facility? Or had he already become a part of it? He took a step and saw the emergency exit at the end of the corridor. He opened the door. The scent of rain outside filled his senses. The real world. Was it real? Or the beginning of another simulation? As David stepped out, raindrops struck his forehead. He turned to take one last look at the facility. The metal walls, the red lights, the silence. But something was different. In the glass, a shape he hadn't noticed from afar. A silhouette, its head tilted slightly, watching him, and it whispered, "We are always here." David took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, the silhouette was gone. But a part of it remained, following his steps from the facility deep inside.